The inside walls of the small intestine have folds, like the folds in this plastic hose. When the hose is compressed, it takes up very little room, but still has a lot of surface area. You can see how much surface area there is by unfolding and extending the hose. In the same way, the inside walls of the small intestine are not flat, but instead have folds. These folds increase the surface area of the walls. With greater surface area, there are more places for food molecules to pass through the walls. There is another special feature of the small intestine that increases the surface area even more. Covering the inside walls are millions of finger-like projections called villi. In some ways, villi are like the fibers on the surface of a fluffy towel. There are thousands of these small fibers that help absorb water. The walls of the villi are very thin. In a process called absorption, food molecules pass through these walls into tiny blood vessels called capillaries. Once food molecules enter the capillaries, they are carried by the bloodstream to cells throughout the body. In this way, food finally gets where it is needed. To muscles, where it is used for energy. To bones, where food helps make new bone cells necessary for a person to grow. And to the brain, so we can take in information about the world around us and think. But not all the food we eat gets digested and absorbed in the small intestine. There are some foods that humans can't digest at all, such as cellulose, a kind of carbohydrate found in many plants, such as fruits and vegetables. Water and undigested food, such as cellulose, pass through the small intestine into the next stage of the digestive system, the large intestine. The large intestine is much shorter than the small intestine, only about 5 feet or 1.5 meters long. However, the large intestine is much bigger around. Near where the two intestines join is a narrow tube called the appendix. The appendix has no function. It can cause problems, however, if it gets infected with germs. Then it becomes inflamed and has to be removed. As food moves through the large intestine, water is absorbed into the blood. Some of this water will later pass out of the body as urine. As water is removed, the remaining waste, called feces, becomes more and more solid as it moves through the large intestine. Feces contain not only undigested food, but also bacteria that make their homes in our small and large intestines. Bacteria are tiny one-celled creatures that can only be seen with a microscope. While some bacteria can cause disease, the bacteria that live inside our intestines are helpful. They help digest some of the food in the intestines, and they also produce vitamins that our bodies need. In the final stage of food's journey through the digestive tract, feces collect in the last section of the large intestine, the rectum. When enough feces collect here, our bodies signal us that we need to get rid of the feces through the anus, the opening at the very end of the digestive tract. As long as 24 hours after the meal that began the whole process, the journey of food through the digestive tract is complete. All that is left is the waste that we expel from our bodies. But in a sense, the journey of food through the digestive system never ends, because our bodies always require food in order to function. In this program, we've looked at the different kinds of nutrients that make up the food we eat, including proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. We've seen how these nutrients are made up of large, complex molecules, and how enzymes break these molecules up into simpler molecules that can be used by the body's cells. We've examined the digestive system and the role that each of the parts of this system plays. We've seen that in the mouth, teeth break food up into smaller pieces, and that the esophagus connects the mouth to the stomach. peristalsis propels food through the esophagus and other parts of the digestive system. We've seen how, inside the stomach, food is churned into a kind of soupy mixture, and how the stomach secretes gastric juice that contains several kinds of digestive enzymes. We've looked at the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, and how they send bile and pancreatic juice to the small intestine, where they help complete the process of digestion. We've seen how the small intestine coils around itself inside the body, and how, if we could uncoil the small intestine like a hose, it would stretch up to 22 feet, or 6.5 meters long. A close look at the walls of the small intestine revealed folds that increase their surface area. These walls are also lined with millions of tiny villi that increase the surface area even more. It is through these villi that food molecules leave the small intestine and pass into blood vessels of the circulatory system to be carried throughout the body. We've examined the large intestine, the last stage of food's journey through the digestive tract. Here, water is absorbed from undigested food, and it is from the large intestine that this waste, called feces, finally leaves our bodies. But perhaps most important of all, we've seen how the digestive system is essential to our health and survival, by making it possible for the food we eat to be used for energy, growth, and repair.